Hello and welcome to episode number 114 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, iHeartRadio, and wherever you get your podcasts. This is Jason Finelli, the esports and gaming insider for Fox PHL The Gambler, back at it again with some of the biggest and best gaming and esports stories of the week. We'll get into the 6 and 60 seconds. We'll get into League of Legends Worlds 2022. The play-in stage is over. The group stage starts Friday at 5 p.m. There will be plenty to talk about in that regard. We will get into the history of a game that turns 30 years old, a major milestone this weekend. I will get into all of that. It's one of my favorite franchises of all time. Very excited to talk about that. And finally, we will do a full reaction, breakdown, what have you, of the Super Mario movie trailer that dropped earlier Thursday afternoon. I have some opinions on it, not as spicy as the ones that we're seeing online at the moment, but still got some things I would like to say about that, so we'll finish up this episode with that. But before we do any of it, let's get right into those 6 in 60 seconds. Your Philadelphia Fusion go 1-1 once again in Week 2 of the Countdown Cup qualifiers, defeating the Shanghai Dragons 3-1 before losing to Guangzhou 3-2. Chengdu Hunters and Seoul Dynasty are on the docket this weekend. The 2023 preseason patch for League of Legends has been detailed, including the return of the Chemtech Drake to the Rift and major changes to the jungle areas. Guilty Gear Strive will have a cross-play beta test beginning October 13th on PlayStation 4, 5, and PC, and it will be a free, separate download for anyone interested. You do not have to own Guilty Gear to participate. Elsewhere, CD Projekt Red reveals its long-term strategy for the next few years, including a new Witcher trilogy, 2 Witcher side stories developed by external studios, and a Cyberpunk sequel. Need for Speed Unbound was officially revealed. Will launch this December on Xbox Series X, PS5, and PC. And finally, in an interview with Game Informer, Bayonetta 3 director Yusuke Miyata confirms that the lead role has been recast from Helena Taylor to seasoned voice actress Jennifer Hale. Those are your 6 in 60 seconds. Yes, those are the headlines from this past week. The Bayonetta news, it was suspected for a while because Helena Taylor had said, or Helena Taylor, I'm sorry if I'm mispronouncing that, had said that she was not doing it anymore. She had alluded to that on Twitter. If a fan had said, I can't imagine anyone but Helena Taylor being Bayonetta, and she responded, well, you might have to, and now we know why. There is speculation that the story may explain this, and that she may come back at the end, but I don't want to make any prognostications until the game actually comes out. But Jennifer Hale, the role is definitely in good hands. We're talking about the female Commander Shepard in Mass Effect, the entire trilogy, and many, many more roles. The voice is definitely one that you will have known if you are a seasoned gamer. Definitely one you've heard before, and honestly, I think she'll nail it. Because, like I said, she's been around the block before. She knows what she's doing, and even the producers are saying that she knocked it out of the park. She sounds good in the trailers, so we'll see how the real game goes when it launches at the end of the month. But first up on the docket this evening, let's talk about League of Legends. The World's 2022 play-ins are complete, with the group stage starting this weekend, specifically Friday, 5 p.m. Eastern Time. Right in prime time, going all night long. Very, very excited to get these going. The play-ins have been great so far, kind of shaped out exactly as I thought they would as far as the teams that made it. Although Fnatic in Group A did surprise me with their ability to take the number 1 slot in Group A. I thought for sure that their COVID decimation would render them basically useless. But I was wrong. They took the entire Group A, number one, good for them. Evil Geniuses ended up being the second team to come out of Group A after a tiebreaker win to get that 2 seed, and then a win against the Mad Lions to get themselves into the group stage. Group B, number one, DRX did not lose a single game. No surprise there. And then Royal Never Give Up at 4-1 defeated Loud from Brazil to be the second qualifier from Group B. So great matches. The two best teams, the four best teams from those play-in groups did make it in my opinion. There were some teams that went 0-5, unfortunately for them. Istanbul Wildcats and the Chiefs, we salute you. I did expect a little more from Detonation Focus Me at 3-3, but they really did play some great matches down the stretch, particularly one against Royal Never Give Up in the final match because they beat Loud to get to RNG, but RNG is just too good. So we're talking about now the groups. Now that the four teams have been decided from the play-ins, we now have our groups for group play. And honestly, as I say every single year, the LCS, the North American League of Legends League, has its work cut out for it. So let's talk about this. Group A was already a pain in the butt for Cloud9. Cloud9 is there, but they're there with T1, who is a perennial powerhouse in League of Legends, the New England Patriots of the 2000s and 2010s. What kind of dynasties are we talking about right now in sports? I'm not actually sure who you could call a dynasty. Maybe the Golden State Warriors, because they just keep coming back. I don't know. But T1 is like the top of the food chain, or very close to it, in League of Legends. And there they sit across from Cloud9 in Group A, along with Edward Gaming, who is the defending champion, as we spoke about last time. And now they get slotted with Fnatic in there, who won Group A of the play-ins and will only be getting players back after their COVID scare. This is a scary group. I would call it the group of death, but I think there's actually another group that makes more sense for that. Every one of these teams is going to be a tough task for Cloud9. However, they're also going to be a tough task for each other. I do not think that there is any clear number one team in this group, just because I think they're all very, very good. Now, you have to make top two in order to get to knockouts, so it's not like you have to get to that top seed to advance. There is the possibility for the 2 seeds in each group to advance. But looking at this schedule right now, looking at the teams that they're playing in this group, I do think that Cloud9, when all is said and done, will be on the outside looking in. I would like to be wrong about that. They are the LCS champions for a reason, summer champions for a reason. They are the number one seed coming out of this region. It is technically home field advantage for them because all of the group stage and knockouts and everything are being played in North America. I believe it's New York, Chicago, Toronto, and then the finals are in San Francisco. I think that's the schedule. I may have added a city by accident, but I know they definitely ended San Francisco, and I know there's definitely stuff going on in New York next weekend. So it could really shake down anyway, but I do still see T1 and Edward coming out of Group A. I don't know which order they're going to be in yet. I would, if I had to pick, it would be T1, then Edward Gaming in that order. But I do think that the 2 Eastern teams will come out of this group, leaving Cloud9 on the outside looking in. Once again, if one of those 2 teams is more vulnerable, I would say Edward. I think T1's really, really strong this year. But again, I think the 2 of them are just too insurmountable for Cloud9 in this. So T1 and Edward coming out of Group A. Now, Group B is the one I think is your group of death. This group is annoyingly good, more so than that Group A. So you have Damwon Gaming Kia, who won 2 years ago, another very good team. G2 Esports, who is just as much of a household name in League of Legends as T1 is. JDG, which was, I believe, the number one team from the Chinese region, which is always a tough region. And then Evil Geniuses. Now, Evil Geniuses seem to think that they're going to come out and crush everyone based on that music video thing they put out on Twitter on Wednesday with Ollie V. May and the CEO of Evil Geniuses, whose name is Nicole LaPointe Johnson. I don't see it. And honestly, I think all that video is going to result in is memes once Evil Geniuses very possibly could go 0-6. Now, I do not think that's going to happen, but I also don't think it's outside of the realm of possibility. Damwon is great. G2 is great. JDG is great. All three of those teams are really, really good. And for you to come in from the play-ins, maybe there's some momentum that you could deal with. Who knows? I mean, the play-ins finish earlier this week. They don't actually play, if I look at the schedule. EG's first game is tomorrow, is Friday, or tonight if you're listening. Tonight against JDG at 8 p.m. approximately Eastern time. I don't expect it to make that. Don't stay up if you weren't planning on it. But honestly, I just don't see it for EG either. I do not see them coming out of this group. As for who will, I'm going to say JDG. And I'm going to say G2 in a shocker. I think G2 is going to come out of this group. I just have this feeling, watching this team, doing some research on the back end, something about this team is sticking out to me that they may squeak past Damwon once, and that'll be enough to get over the hump. If it has to be a tiebreaker, I think they can win the tiebreaker too. JDG, I think, is going to win the group, and then G2 in the second seed. So we have T1 and Edward from Group A, Damwon and JDG and G2 from Group B. Going to Group C now, I think this one's a little more cut and dry. Even though DRX had a huge showing in the play-ins, going 5-0, I do think being put in a group with Rogue and Top Esports is going to be their downfall, and I do see Rogue and Top coming out of this. I think Top will be number 1, Rogue will be number 2, and I think it'll be a one match. Like, I think Top can go 6-0, or even 5-1, and then Rogue will go 4-2. That's not to say DRX will not compete with these teams. I could very much be wrong about that, but I'm just leaning Top and Rogue in Group C. Unfortunately, Gam, thanks for coming, GAM Esports, but I don't see it for you. I really, really don't. This group really has not a whole lot of stress for me because it's the only one that doesn't have a North American team in it. The only one I don't have to really put all the eggs in the basket, if you know what I'm saying. So I think Rogue and Top are going to be your guys. I think Top and Rogue in that order. Excuse me. Will be going into the knockouts, and then finally Group D, the third and final group with a North American LCS team. This is 100 Thieves, and see, here's the problem. I thought they had a good shot of getting out of this group with Genji, CTBC Flying Oyster, great name, by the way. When it was like that, I thought, depending on who lands in this group, I think they might have a decent shot of getting through to knockouts. We'll see. And then RNG got plopped in there. And that maybe I'm just too afraid of the LPL. And the LCK, maybe the Korean and Chinese leagues just scare me too much. But history would say that I am correct in that assumption. These leagues have dominated League of Legends international play for as long as I've been watching, and definitely longer than that. I believe, if I remember correctly, RNG is the winner of the MSI, the Mid-Season Invitational. So they're coming in with the most recent championship. Edward Gaming won last year's Worlds, but there's been a tournament since then, and I do believe RNG was the winner of that. I will, let me look that up here. It should be right here maybe not. Oh, MSI, yes, here it is. Yes, I am correct about that. Beating T1 in the finals. The knockouts were RNG, Evil Geniuses, T1, and G2, with RNG beating T1 in the finals. So they're coming off of the huge win. You had T1 in there as well. So I think Gen G and RNG are the ones out of this. I'm putting my eggs in that basket. Yes, my knockouts are very LCK and LPL heavy, but again, I say, what is going to what? Why is that any different than any other year? Yes, I do have two LEC teams in here as well. Sorry, LCS. I just LEC being the European League. I just don't see it. I just don't. Now, I hate to be that way. If I had to pick a team that I think has the best road, it's going to be 100 Thieves. I still think that if they can sneak a win against RNG or sneak a win against Gen G, that could be enough to bump them to at least a tiebreaker. Kind of a similar situation to what G2 is in Group B, what I was mentioning earlier. I do think 100 Thieves have the best chance of the three, but I also think that all three could go 0-6 without much issue, right? Like I think all three of these teams could from the LCS could go 0-6. I hate to be that way, I really do, but history shows that the other big regions in the world, your LPLs, your LCKs, your LECs, are so far ahead of the LCS that the competition is just not there. I want to be wrong, and I want one of these teams to prove me wrong. But this, I just do not see it this year. No team from the LCS do I think has distanced themselves. There is an argument to be made with Evil Geniuses. As I just mentioned, they did get to the Final Four in MSI. But I do not see it. I just cannot fathom any of these LCS teams getting out of these groups. It pains me to say it. I hate it. I hate that I have to say it. But I just can't see it. So, my group winners predicting right now: T1 and Edward in Group 1, G2 and Damwon Gaming Kia in. I'm sorry, no. G2 and JDG. I gotta stop doing that. G2 and JDG in Group B, Rogue and Top in Group C, Gen G and RNG. Gen G and Rogue never give up in Group D. And of those 8 teams, I believe I said in the previous episode, I have to look this up, episode 112, I believe I said I was leaning towards T1 to win it all, and I think I may stick to that based on how the groups look now. Obviously, it will depend on how the knockouts shake out, and you can talk to me, in 2 weeks' time, I believe, is when knockouts are completed, Sunday, October 16th. So yes, come not next week's episode, not 115, but 116 will be 116 will be talking about the brackets themselves, assuming they also start on a Friday. That would be nice. But right now there's a lot of groups action to be played. I'm very excited. Watching League of Legends is growing on me. I'm beginning to understand the nuances of the game more. I'm beginning to understand why teams play the way they do. I still need to dig into like the drafting and why heroes are being banned and stuff like that, but that would require me to watch it more than just Worlds, and I do want to do that. Don't get me wrong, I just don't have the time, but I will make the time because I want to learn this game. I want to be more up about this game. It is fascinating to watch, but and Worlds is the best time to get into it, I think, and then prepare yourself for the next season. So check out League of Legends Worlds action. It is on YouTube. LOL Esports has all of the matches. LOLesports.com, you can watch it, and if you have a Riot account, you can link your Riot account and earn drops in the game as you watch. Always good. Did that a couple of times in the play-ins, so I can guarantee it works for you. But yes, there's a lot of good stuff to like right now, a lot of good stuff to be ready to watch. There are 7 matches. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 matches. Excuse me. My eyes were deceiving me. There are 6 matches to watch on October 7th every day until the 16th with one break, and that break is Tuesday and Wednesday, the 11th and 12th. So you have 6 matches tomorrow, 6 matches Saturday, 6 matches Sunday, 6 matches Monday, next Thursday, next Friday, next Saturday, and next Sunday. 6 matches total each day, getting through all of groups, and then we'll know what the knockouts look like, or if there's any tiebreakers. So there could be some more matches between now and then. Very excited to see it all play out, and I hope you are too. Looking forward to seeing who pulls out League of Legends Worlds this year. Coming up after the break, we look back at 30 years of one of the most influential fighting games of all time, sometimes for the wrong reasons. Stick around. Yes, folks, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode number 114. Chugging along right here, just recapped and previewed League of Legends 2022 Worlds. Group stage starts Friday night, 5 p.m. Eastern Time on YouTube or on LOLesports.com. Make sure you watch those. But we are shifting our focus right now to a major milestone in games. Sometimes I like to talk about the anniversaries of games, especially when they're giant milestones. We did Ninja Turtles before when Shredder's Revenge came out, and we've done other landmark franchises celebrating certain anniversaries. And we have another one here too. On October the 8th, 1992, was the arcade debut of a little game called Mortal Kombat. That's right, Mortal Kombat is 30 years young this Saturday. I distinctly remember the first summer that game was in the Gateway 26 arcade machine down there in North Wildwood, New Jersey. I looked at it, and then that was the end of it. I wasn't allowed near it, and that was only solidified when I think the last time I've actually been to this place as well. My family took a trip to Rehoboth down there in Delaware to visit some friends and stay at their spot. We were on the Rehoboth Boardwalk, and they had a Mortal Kombat. And that was the first time my parents saw the series' trademark fatalities. And of course, it was Sub-Zero's head rip. Couldn't have been the bicycle kick, the cartwheel uppercut by Liu Kang. Couldn't even have been Raiden electrocuting a guy till he turns into a skeleton. No, had to be the most infamous move in the entire game, the Blue Ninja ripping the head off of his opponent with the spine still attached. That moment, this is why Mortal Kombat means a lot to me. That moment right there resulted in me not being able to play any violent video games whatsoever. When I say violent, I mean like bloody, gory, over-the-top violent. I was allowed to play Street Fighter. I was allowed to play like Streets of Rage and stuff like that. I'm talking about like Samurai Showdown got me in trouble because there was, chopping in half and stuff like that. Mortal Kombat obviously would have gotten me in trouble. Of course, being the rascal that I was, my friend had a version of Mortal Kombat for Super Nintendo and Sega Genesis. Did not have the same restrictions that I did, so we would play it there. I would get my fix. Just wasn't allowed in their house. I think I turned out okay, though. All things considered, the jury is out on that, and I will thank you to not follow up with that. At Big Man Finelli on Twitter, if you'd like to tell me I'm wrong. But, yes, so 1992, October, Mortal Kombat made its debut into theaters and has since established a legacy of supremely good and not so supremely good fighting games. We're going to run through the full slate of games and where I think they fit in the ranking. I'll talk about my favorite Mortal Kombat game. And I think I'm going to split it into 3 eras, just like everybody else seems to do as far as the main series is concerned. So you have your original Mortal Kombats up until let's say 1999, right? There were a couple of offshoots around there and stuff like that, but 1999, I think, or 97, I guess to be more specific, is the first era of Mortal Kombat, 92 to 97. Then there's a little bit of a break, couple of little games here and there, an offshoot Special Forces on 2000, and then 2002, I think, is the second era of Mortal Kombat with Deadly Alliance. Then we'll get into that. And then the third era is the current era, which for me starts in 2011 with the reboot, the Mortal Kombat reboot, the 9th main game for PS3 and 360. So let's begin with the originals. So Mortal Kombat, obviously a classic, the first ever Mortal Kombat game, 7 characters, hidden 8th character that you couldn't play as. but you could find you could do certain things in order to be able to fight him, Reptile. And if you won, then you won the match. And then two boss characters that you couldn't play as in Shang Tsung and Goro. I distinctly remember the Super Nintendo version where it was you could turn off the blood and it was just like sweat. It was just like gray, white liquid. It didn't really, and all the fatalities were toned down. I wasn't allowed to try that one, but it. I remember playing this game for the first time and seeing like Scorpion throw the spear and Raiden shoot across the screen with his hit you in the belly is what I always said when he did that rushing move with his hands. I just remember being so, I don't want to say, enthralled, but like amazed that these looked like real people. Like Street Fighter, they were obviously animated sprites. These were digitized real people. They looked like real people on the screen in front of me, adding to that realism, particularly in the violence section. I just remember being so amazed that it was the only game that I could think of in that era. I was 5. The characters looked like real people. So then seeing Sub-Zero rip a guy's head off, just made it seem that much more legit. Go back and watch like the news coverage from that time. I'm sure YouTube has news clips of this gory game and violence in video games. It became the scapegoat that it still sort of is with the people who don't know what video games are. And you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say that. Really came into acclaim, no pun intended, with in that regard. And Mortal Kombat 2 only cranked that up to 11. Now, MK2, that's the one I would say I snuck the most. My friend owned it for Sega Genesis, just lived up the street from me, so when I would go play, we would play Mortal Kombat 2 on the Sega Genesis. And that's where I really fell in love with this franchise. I loved the character designs. I loved the moves. I did love the violence. I'm not going to complain. I thought as a 7-year-old kid, I thought it was awesome. Should I have been looking at it? No, probably not. But there I was. That's where I really came into my Mortal Kombat fandom. Mortal Kombat 3, Ultimate Mortal Kombat 3, also fantastic fighting games. Brought in the run mechanic, which made things great. The crazy over the top combos, the sometimes comical fatalities, which is weird to say, with things that were so over the top violent. It was like the suspension of disbelief was ruined. You knew it wasn't reality anymore just because of how crazy. Like the one robot could blow up the entire Earth. It definitely started to slip the bonds of its realism. In a sense, it was still digitized people, and it was still a bloody, gory mess. And some of them were still a little more like cringe-inducing, not in today's definitions of cringe, like the actual like, oh my god, that's terrible sort of idea. There were some that still did that, but then some of them were so over-the-top loony, especially like the brutalities where they exploded into more body parts than they actually had. There'd be like 5 legs and 4 arms and 3 skulls laying around, stuff like that. It just became funny. It became comical. Mortal Kombat Trilogy I thought was great. All the characters in one spot. Thought the PS1 version was the better version of the two. That's the one I played the most of. I liked how if you picked Shang Tsung and if you wanted to avoid loading screens, or you avoid loading in the middle of a match, you could designate certain people that he could transform into or switch into. Or if you activated it where everybody, it would have to load that person. I always thought that was a nice little way to get around that. I'd love to ask Ed Boon one day why that was the idea for Mortal Kombat Trilogy. And then the next game in the franchise was actually the first spin-off. There were 3 spin-offs of Mortal Kombat in the like 97 to 2005 range, ranging in quality from meh to Mortal Kombat Mythology Sub-Zero is right in the middle there. I love the game for its camp. I think it's a campy, silly game, but the physics in that game, and sometimes when you jump on a ledge and it says it thinks you didn't jump on that ledge and you're dead, or like you kick a guy and he just kind of walks through it and hits you. That kind of stuff, bothered me. But the game was still fun, and the final like segment of that game where in order to win the game and get the best ending, you have to run away from the giant monster. I thought that was awesome. It was really one of the most unique kind of games I ever played. But then Mortal Kombat 4 entered its 3D phase, entered the franchise's 3D phase. And this one, unfortunately, is known more for its meme-worthy material, like its endings, for example, than the actual game itself. Although most of the endings came, I think, in Mortal Kombat Gold, the Dreamcast version 2 years later. But this was sort of like the apex, or like the tipping point for the franchise in terms of quality for a while. Like 4 is where it started to show its edges. Special Forces was the worst of the 3 spin-offs by a country road. And then we get to Deadly Alliance. The Deadly Alliance is in this weird, like, transition phase. Mortal Kombat 4 tried to enter in the 3D era. Did fine in some portions, did not in others. So Deadly Alliance tries to come in. They introduce a swath of new characters. They start doing fighting styles and how you can change between fighting styles. There's weapons for the first time. This was an interesting way to approach it. It wasn't perfect. There were still some growing pains, I thought, in the 3D Mortal Kombat format that needed to be worked out. But I thought it was a better stepping stone than 4, whether it was the better technology of the PS2 or what have you. It was a better 3D fighting game, I thought. And Deception, I think, was even better. Deception, I think, is the apex of that second era, where we're talking about the end of the retro era ending with Mortal Kombat 4, and then getting into the 3D era of the PS2, Xbox, and GameCube. Deadly Alliance was a good start. Deception, I think, was the perfection of this era. You had that huge story mode with all the different realms. You could talk to people, do missions. The old and new characters that were there. The final boss in Onaga was really cool. The way that those scenes played out was just a really cool stuff. I really, really dug Deception. I played the hell out of it on PS2. It was 2004. I was 17 at this point. I didn't have the restrictions that I had in my youth. And this, I think, really solidified me as a lifelong Mortal Kombat fan. I played Deception more than I care to admit. It was so good, and it made me so excited for the next one. Armageddon, which we'll get to, but I think Deception with its like floor traps in certain stages, the roster was really, really good. That sprawling storyline, which really sets the table for the stories that they would tell later on in both Mortal Kombat and its sister game Injustice. I think Deception was a really, really good 3D Mortal Kombat game, the best of the 3, by leaps and bounds, honestly. I loved that game, and I will always defend it as a really fun, really interesting take on Mortal Kombat. It still did the fighting styles with the weapons. That didn't really change, but I loved Deception. Shaolin Monks released during this time as well, between Deception and Armageddon, a major cult hit, probably the most popular of the 3 spin-offs from this era. And people are still clamoring for a remake or a remaster to this day, to the point where it was sort of acknowledged that this was happening by NetherRealm in the stage tournament, I think it's called, from Mortal Kombat 11, which has the arcade machines in the background and stuff like that. Not the one in the arcade, the one, like the tournament one, where it has a couple of machines, and one of them is Shaolin Monks. And it's just playing Shaolin Monks on its own, on like some sort of demo. The fact that it was even there, I feel, acknowledges how popular it is with people, and how many people want to see it back again. I don't know if and when that's going to happen. It won't be my NetherRealm, I'll tell you that. But still worthy of a mention here is Shaolin Monks from 2005. But then we move on to Armageddon in 2006. This was Mortal Kombat trilogy to the max. It was every single character in Mortal Kombat history. I loved the idea of that. I loved having the gangs all here, plus some other new ones from another storyline. This storyline was not quite as good as Deceptions, I would say, but the biggest faux pas of Armageddon, in my eyes, was the create a fatality system. That there were so many characters that they couldn't give them all their own fatality, so they gave you a bunch of generic fatality moves. You started the sequence and then plugged in as many as you could until you got the death move. In theory, this is not a bad idea, but in practice, all it did was make the allure of the fatalities last even less than it does in a normal Mortal Kombat game. Part of the fun of this franchise, and it's been this way since the beginning, it's certainly that way now, we'll get to that in the new era, is seeing the new fun and creative ways that the developers have created to have these characters maim themselves. I know that sounds a little, gross, but it's the truth. Outside of the competitive scene, people play Mortal Kombat for the over-the-top, borderline comedic violence. They just do. So to take that away and put in this creative fatality system where you're up against the clock and you have to memorize 5 different smaller motions all at the same time in order to get the sequence that you want, and it was branching paths and all this other stuff, it just was a lot. It was a lot, and I don't think anybody was really into it. I feel like Armageddon was a appropriate name for what the game did to the franchise at that point, because we didn't see a new one for 5 years after that. We saw some offshoots in Unchained for the PSP and Ultimate Mortal Kombat for the DS. We did see a crossover, which I guess counts as a quote unquote core game, but and they acknowledge it as a core game, as the 8th core game, Mortal Kombat 8. But I hold, and I'm sure I'm not alone in this, I hold Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe in a different section of my brain than the core Mortal Kombat series. For me, Mortal Kombat in 2011, the reboot, is 8, but in as far as the company acknowledges, DC Universe is 8. And I liked the idea of Mortal Kombat versus DC Universe. I loved that crossover. I did not like the T rating. No one that liked Mortal Kombat liked the T rating. They knew it was a death wish, or a death knell, I should say, right when they saw it. The fact that the heroes did not kill anyone, they did heroic brutalities, and then the best fatality in the game was switched to being done off screen because of that T rating. It was a nightmare. That T rating killed that game. I feel like if this is the one, everyone talks about they want Shaolin Monks redone. I would love to see another full MKDC crossover game. Mortal Kombat DC Universe 2. Build on the story of the first game. Start a new one if you want. Call it Mortal Kombat Injustice or something like that. Whatever you want to do. With that M rating, which I think they could get now, just by the way DC presents itself, that game could now be great. But the one that came out in 2008, which, for me, is a milestone in that it was the first video game I ever reviewed, and that review was the first article I ever had published on the internet. So it does hold a special place for me. But as far as looking at it in comparison to the entire Mortal Kombat franchise, it's unfortunately poopy dukes. It really is. The best part of that game is the fusion of Darkseid and Shao Kahn into Dark Khan. I'm taking no other questions on that. It did, I guess, lay the groundwork for Injustice, in a sense. But I try to forget Mortal Kombat DC Universe exists. But I keep getting reminded of it now and again. But that 3-year, anomaly in the timeline was rectified 3 years later by Mortal Kombat 9, just called Mortal Kombat, a reboot story that went back and basically retconned what Armageddon did, started back at the original game and combined the stories of the first three into one big epic tale. Solidified the way that NetherRealm was going to tell stories by switching between different characters and playing out different scenes and fighting different characters at the same time. This is where the foundation of the current age of Mortal Kombat, we're now in Phase 3 of Mortal Kombat, started. I loved this game. I loved everything that it represents for the franchise. I loved that it was the first one to introduce outside characters, PlayStation exclusive Kratos, but more importantly, Freddy Krueger. The addition of Freddy Krueger into Mortal Kombat 9, I think, for me, is one of the most important things, one of the most important groundworks laid by this game in the modern era. It showed NetherRealm and their parent company, WB, that the crossover works, that people want it, and that guest characters like this can work if done correctly, which was a groundwork laid by Super Smash Bros. Brawl in 2008. They saw it, they tried it, obviously they loved it, because in 2015 when Mortal Kombat X came out, which many people consider to be the best Mortal Kombat game of all time, better than Mortal Kombat 11, Mortal Kombat X comes out and they bring in Jason Voorhees, they bring in Leatherface, they bring in Alien as Baraka, which was genius, they bring in Predator. I think I'm forgetting other guest characters there too, but everything about Mortal Kombat X is great. I cannot say enough how much I love that game. I still go back to it every once in a while just to, muck around and fight a couple matches here and there. I do have 11 as well, and we'll get to 11. But X, man, everything about that game. The speed was perfect. It wasn't too slow. It wasn't too fast. Every hit felt impactful and intense. It's just such a good game, and I love playing Jason Voorhees. I love that character in that game. I thought it was so well done, implementing him into the Mortal Kombat universe. Just such a very, very good game. However, not my favorite crossover in the Mortal Kombat franchise. That belongs to Mortal Kombat 11 and the introduction of Spawn. I love Spawn in Mortal Kombat 11. I love Mortal Kombat 11 in general. I love that game. Do I think it's as good as do I think it's better than Mortal Kombat X? Yes, slightly. And I think I would attribute that to its story mode. Mortal Kombat X's story mode is awesome, don't get me wrong, but the entirety of the Mortal Kombat 11 package, the main story, plus the aftermath story expansion, all the characters that have been added since then, I think Mortal Kombat 11 turned into, eventually, a better game than X was. It took a while to get there, don't get me wrong, it was very much a Street Fighter 4 to Street Fighter 5 transition in some respects, but the game was good. The game is good now, it's still fun to play, and we're waiting for whatever the next game in the Mortal Kombat franchise is. But yes, getting back to guest characters for MK11, you have Spawn, you have RoboCop, you have the Terminator, you have more that for whatever reason I cannot think of in this current moment. But also, too, the fact that they brought in old actors to replay their roles, like bringing in Carrie to play Shang Tsung, awesome. Bringing in as DLC the original actors for Cage, Sonya Blade, and I want to say Kano, but I think I'm wrong about that. From the movie, genius. Loved every part of it. I think Mortal Kombat 11 has this franchise in a great place, and whatever NetherRealm decides to do next, be it Mortal Kombat 12, be it Injustice 3, whatever it is, the franchise is in wonderful, wonderful hands. The story is in a great spot. The fighting is awesome. I'm not sure how they can iterate from where it is now, but that's up to them, not to me. I am excited for more Mortal Kombat, but we have to acknowledge the history. This game is 30 years old this Saturday. Happy 30th birthday to one of the most influential franchises in video games. Again, sometimes not for the right reasons, particularly the spearheading of the violent video games corrupt our kids arguments that have since been going on. But without Mortal Kombat, I don't think the fighting game genre persists the way it does today. Don't get me wrong, Street Fighter was a huge driving force in that, but I think having the alternative and having them compete just drove the rest of the fighting game genre into what it is today. Even in the 3D realm, when Tekken and Virtua Fighter, Mortal Kombat tried, they weren't as good, but when they finally found their footing with MK9, now fighting games are approaching a golden age or a platinum age, I think, with Street Fighter 6 and whatever NetherRealm has going on next. And I think the Mortal Kombat franchise is definitely one of its pillars. So happy birthday, happy 30th birthday, Mortal Kombat. I look forward to fatalities galore in the next game, whatever that may be. Coming up after the break, let's talk about Super Mario Brothers movie trailer that came out on Thursday. What I think's good, what I think's bad, and what I think I need, and what my final opinion is based on 2.5 minutes in a trailer. Stick around. All right, welcome back to Cheesesteaks and Controllers, episode number 114. Wrapping things up this week with a analysis, reaction, whatever you want to call it, to the trailer, the first teaser trailer of the Super Mario Brothers movie. Now, they announced on Tuesday that this would be airing as part of a special Nintendo Direct. The video started. It was a lot of Miyamoto speaking with the head of Illumination, whose name eludes me at the moment, Chris Hendrickson, I want to say. And then we saw Chris Pratt mail in a, webcam, hey, I'm excited for this movie. We saw Jack Black very much not mail in his portion of that. And then the trailer began. To start, I think it was very smart to dedicate more than half of this trailer to Bowser. And when I say more than half, I mean it's a 2-minute 26 teaser, and Bowser leaves the screen at 1 minute 34 seconds. So he takes up a bulk of this teaser, and it's good that he did, because Jack Black as Bowser is perfect. The voice is spot on. The attitude is there. The animations are awesome. The scale of the army makes him look scary and foreboding. The fact that his fortress is basically a floating volcano on a piece of land, and the way it's crushing towers and anchoring into the snow looks amazing. Seeing him destroy the palace and get this power star, superstar. We don't know what he's using it for. We don't even know why he wants it. He's very excited about having it and asking who's going to stop him. That whole sequence is great. The fact that the opposing force that he's going up against is penguins from Mario 64 and other Mario games. That was a fantastic touch. I feel like that was put there just for the old heads like me who remember those penguins from the Snowland. That was from Mario Kart 64. From the snow levels in, Mario Kart 64, the snow levels in Mario 64, dropping that one off of the cliff and stuff like that. Or belly sliding down the icy ramp in that one level in order to get the star. I remember those very vividly. I played a lot of Super Mario 64. So making the penguins a part of that in the very beginning was a great touch. I thought that was a very, very fun, cool idea. And was able to show off not only Bowser's power and the voice of Jack Black, but also, too, the scale of the animation we're dealing with here. There's a ton of people a ton of characters on screen. They're all doing very cool, intricately animated things. When they throw the snowball at Bowser and it just kind of slowly comes off of him and breaks up just as real snow does. Very, very cool looking visual there. The fire blowing up the building and sending the smoke towards the army. Awesome stuff. I do like when the Koopa gets whacked with the ice catapult. That was a nice touch. I particularly too Kamek, the blue hooded Koopa there with the little staff announcing the King of the Koopas. I thought he animated very, very cool, just the way his mouth moved around and his nose kind of like shifted with his face as he was making his announcements and pounding his scepter on the ground. Just a really cool sequence, this first thing. But a lot of the attention online has gone towards not the first minute 33, but the final 50 seconds or so, where Mario, and more specifically the voice of Mario, Chris Pratt, makes his debut. Now, he only says 2 lines in this trailer. If you are making a judgment off of 2 lines, I think you need to wait a little longer. That being said, they could have chosen 2 better lines. If he was going for a New York accent, it's not quite there based on how he spoke, what he said in this trailer. The second line, Mushroom Kingdom, here we come, kind of has it. The first line, what is this place, does not have it at all. I need to hear more. I will reserve judgment on Chris Pratt's performance until I hear more of what is going on here. I will say I was not enthused by the 2 lines I heard here, but it's only 2 lines of an entire 90-minute, 20-minute movie. Let's wait until we see more trailers. Let's wait until April 7th when the movie drops, and then we'll talk about whether or not his performance was good or bad. That being said, of the 5 voices that we hear in this trailer, Bowser, Kamek, the Penguin King, Toad, and Mario, Chris Pratt is the least convincing. I will say that. I think Keegan-Michael Key as Toad was very, very good. They amped his voice up a little bit so he sounds like a Toad would. Not to the screeching levels that we're sort of used to in modern Toad, but not as low as Keegan-Michael Key's actual voice is. Not that his voice is very low. I thought it was a nice place to put his voice. That was smart and well done. Again, Bowser is far and away the star of this teaser trailer. Jack Black's going to nail it. I'm very, very excited to see the rest of it. But admittedly, the star of the show is the one part of this that gives me the most pause. I will not, earlier I said that judgment, full judgment is unwarranted at this stage. He only said 2 things. That I still agree with that. I am not reserving judgment on his entire performance until I see it. However, as I said, the 2 lines they chose for him to be in this trailer were not ideal, not great. It does not engender confidence in me for the rest of it. I would have rather have heard a little more of Charlie Day as Luigi. That little moment where he's running, that sounded pretty good, but I need to hear him speak. There was no Peach at all, which really, really upset my daughter. She was watching for Peach, and then Peach didn't show up. I was hoping to see a little bit of Peach as well, but that did not happen. Anya Taylor-Joy, your debut as Peach will have to wait until the next trailer, which I imagine won't take too long. I mean, the movie comes out April 7th. It's October 6th. We are, 6 months away from the movie's launch, so I imagine we'll see a couple more trailers between now and then. Illumination will illuminate us on what this movie actually is. But my overall feeling of this trailer, of this 2.5-minute teaser, is pretty good. I feel like Illumination nailed the way it should look. It feels like the Mushroom Kingdom in those last 50 seconds when Mario and Toad are jumping over the mushrooms. Bowser feels like a threat, from his gigantic foreboding fortress to the massive armies that he has to the bellow in his voice. Jack Black is nailing it. The teases that we've heard right after the trailer aired, Jack Black appeared on the New York Comic-Con stage for an interview, and he mentioned that Bowser's going to get musical, so I'm genuinely curious what that means, how he has a little music in him. If I'm going to, I can read the exact tweet that IGN put up as they were sitting in on the panel. The exact words they used, or he used, were, "I did a little bit of rocking. I think you'll be surprised to see that Bowser has a musical side." I would be surprised to see that Bowser has a musical side, and I hope it sounds like Tenacious D, and I hope somehow they bring in Kyle to be part of it as well. That would be awesome. But I think there is a lot to like. I think there is enough to like in this teaser. I am not about to throw in the towel in this movie just yet. I think that's preemptive. I do think there is cause for concern in the performance of Chris Pratt, but I am not about to say that you Sonic the Hedgehog movie this and completely change it. I need to hear more of that. I need to hear more of his voice before I do that. I think the hashtag #NotMyMario is a little preemptive, I would say. However, the prevailing theory is that the voice actor for Mario all these years, Charles Martinet, should be allowed to reprise his role in this movie. To which I say, I get replacing him. Now, I understand that he is synonymous with Mario. You think of Mario, you think of Charles Martinet if you're a gamer like me and you've been around the gaming block for a very long time. However, when you really sit down and think about it, how many lines has Charles Martinet as Mario actually said? How much dialogue has actually come out of his mouth when he is performing Mario? When you really sit down and look at it, the answer is not a lot. It's mostly like jumping sounds or the occasional wahoo or yippee or whatever. He's at the end of Mario 64, he said, "Thank you so much for playing my game." He's had a couple other lines here and there. But as far as like a full 90 to 120 minute movie with that Mario voice, I don't know if that's the right idea. So I get recasting him. I get bringing in someone else to do it. Will it prove that they recasted with the wrong person? It could. If Chris Pratt is not good at it, that just means that they picked the wrong person to be Mario. It does not mean that the inherent choice to recast him was incorrect. I hope making sense. But that's where I stand on it. I don't mind that they chose to move the movie version of Mario away from Charles Martinet, because that voice for a full 2 hours speaking dialogue is a much heavier task, and I don't know if the voice has that much staying power, if that makes sense. It's weird to say that Mario's voice could be a turnoff for people, but depending on like how many lines he has, how extensive the script is, that voice could get old after a while. It could become annoying. No offense to Charles Martinet, don't get me wrong, but recasting him with a seasoned movie or TV actor makes sense to me. Now, it needs to be seen whether or not Chris Pratt is up for the role. And again, I'm not going to judge him for 2 lines. So I liked what I saw. I want to see more. I'm hoping the next trailer will have a little Princess Peach in it, so Olivia has something to watch as well. But for the most part, I am in a good place with the Super Mario movie. I'm looking forward to the next trailer, whenever that may be, and I'm very much looking forward to April 7th when that movie comes out, and we can see what Illumination has done with the Mario franchise. Could be a one and done, considering Nintendo bought Dynamo Pictures, renamed it to Nintendo Pictures. They could be getting into the movie business of their own, or it could be a humongous get, make a ton of money, and become the next big movie franchise. Honestly, it's Super Mario Brothers. That's what I'm expecting, but we will see what happens on April 7th when the movie launches, finally, after all this time. And with that, we are at the end of episode number 114 of the Cheesesteaks and Controllers podcast, presented by Fox PHL The Gambler, 102.5 FM, 1480 AM, and iHeartRadio. Wherever you get your podcasts is where you can hear this voice. And if you are at the end of the show here, as I say every single week, it means you've gotten through everything I've had to say this episode, and I very much appreciate that you stuck around. I hope you were entertained. I hope you were educated. If you have questions, comments, concerns, and you just want to tell me I'm a dope, go to @BigManFanelli on Twitter, BigManFanelli, and you can tell me, what a jerk I am. But just be nice about it. Constructive criticism, the occasional jab, that's fine. Don't go don't do what Twitter does, is what I'm saying. If you want to tell me how to fix a show, or you want to tell me something you want me to talk about, great. If you want to tell me that I should, get cracked over the head with a hammer because I have a podcast, you can leave that to yourself. But anyway, so the fact that you're listening to this, I appreciate. I'm glad you're here. I hope you'll be with me next week for episode 115, where we talk about more of the latest and greatest gaming news that comes every single week. Thank you so much for listening. I hope you have a fantastic weekend. I hope you have an even better week right behind it. And here we will be next week, episode 115, for more video game stuff and esports too. Let's do some esports. Goodbye.